So John talked about our vitality process and walked us through that, and Stephanie shared with our trip to Twin Falls. And I'm going to share a little bit of how we got from our pulse survey with our strategic plan and brought it all together to decide on children and youth ministry. The pulse survey identified evangelism and discipleship as desires of our congregation as a whole of what we wanted to see done in our church. Pastor Matt shared an article with us from an outside source from the International Network of Children's Ministry, and I'd like to share some information from that and some of my impressions as a part of this strategic planning team as a mother of young children as well. A fact that was in the article, but I also did some independent research and found similar numbers across the board, is that nearly 80% of people in our churches today decide to follow Jesus before age 18, and 50% decide to follow Jesus before age 12. Evangelizing children is something that I can see clearly in our church, and I've always been told is a huge priority of this congregation. I can see that in things like Miss Sally Christensen's class. I've had 2 children in that class, and they just adore what she has put together. But what's next for our church? Who will take over for her when she feels that her time in that position is done? In many churches, what is happening in children's ministry is woefully undersupported by and nearly invisible to the rest of the church. I think this holds true in our church in its own way. It is difficult to find volunteers for our children's ministry, and this area is uninviting, and we don't treat it as number one priority. Nearly 60 years ago, Henrietta Mears said, "When you look at most churches, their programming, their staff, their budgets, it appears that children must first become prodigals. Then we will go about putting together elaborate programs and events to save them." Even if Oak Harbor wasn't expecting another 750 plus new children in the next 3 years, aren't the kids that we have here now worth it? Aren't the ones that are already in our church worth saving? We sit here and we silently bicker and battle for preference between the chronologically gifted and the young. But what if we rally around our youth? What would the next generation look like if a church invested in its youngest members? Ecclesiastes 3 verse 1 says, "For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven." God is calling us. This is our time to raise up behind our youth and children.